Thank you, Prof. My name is Yuan Murigesu, Singaporean, looking forward to the campaign which will be starting.
Speak louder, please.
Thank you for the panel for clarifying the custodial reactionary powers of the elected president. Recently, we had a dialogue session with Dr. Tan Cheng Bock at the alumni and a very vigorous Q&A session. And one circumstance which I would like to ask the panel, is that he mentioned that in certain exceptional circumstances, the elected president can call for a national referendum. And perhaps the panel can explain, in terms of the Constitution, when such a situation might arise, when it is a gridlock situation and there's no progress forward, and when the elected president can actually call for a referendum. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuan. Thank you. Leanne, please.
The only relevant clause you can think about is Article 52A, but it's not true that the president can call for referendum. Article 52A, which is not in force, has to deal with amending certain parts of the Constitution, and the president can actually say you don't need a referendum if he consents to the amendment itself.
But he has no
he can't
call for a referendum. No. Okay. Okay, somebody in the back, is it? Okay.
Hello. My name is Angela Oon.
Can you bring the microphone down so that so we can hear you? Can the gentleman sitting behind, can you help her, please? Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me?
Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Angela Oon. I'm a member of the Workers' Party, but I'm asking the question in my personal capacity. I think Mr. Shanmugam has made it very clear that the Constitution both defines and circumscribes what the elected president can do. And if he oversteps those boundaries, I think Mr. Shanmugam has said that there would be consequences, but he didn't want to elaborate on them. What I find curious is that in response to another question, Professor Thio said that if the president oversteps his bounds, that the courts don't have the purview, to issue these punitive measures. So it goes back, it seems to me, to a political process which, is evolutionary. So I think it's not unreasonable, and I apologize, but for me to push Mr. Shanmugam to elaborate on what would happen, if the elected president does something that the Constitution doesn't explicitly allow.
I just want to know to what extent the elected president can influence the management of the reserves.
Thanks, Prof. Koh. Eugene Tan from the School of Law at the Singapore Management University. I think it's quite clear that the elected president's office is a very, very much misunderstood office. And I think I partly attribute that to the fact that the last presidential elections was almost 20 years ago, right, in 1993. It is not the job of the government, of course, to engineer an election. But I think it is important that a process that Singaporeans get to know actually what the president does. Right? I think what we see now really are the ceremonial trappings of the presidency. Right? And so in a very different climate today, right, there is a sense that the president, given the amount that he is remunerated, right, that it seems quite a lot to pay, right, for what is essentially very ceremonial functions. So I think it is important for an institution like the elected president, that a process by which Singaporeans can better understand what the president does, right, especially those relating to his executive stroke custodial powers, right, which tend to happen go behind the scenes. Right, and so now you have this situation in which it becomes a very useful electoral gimmick to overpromise, right? So let's open the Istana, make it a public. Anyone can go in anytime. Right. I'll donate half my salary to charity. So maybe we should give the presidency to the lowest bidder, right? So what I'm saying here is really, that in the end, because of the sort of misunderstanding, misperceptions.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. So Eugene, your question is, how can Singaporeans better understand help the president explain to the people his many duties and what he does in order to earn his generous salary? Okay. Final question.
Okay, Anthony Chia, campaign. Very briefly, when Ong Teng Cheong was considering re-election, his health became an issue brought up by Cabinet. Since it's such a very important position, should we not apply the requirement for health check for all candidates? Thank you.
As far as health checks is concerned, I think all candidates voluntarily actually release some things. So, in a sense, if I was a candidate and people were concerned about my health, I'd release everything and say, "See, I'm so transparent, vote me." Okay, so I would turn it into a political brownie point. As far as the pay is concerned, well, I'm looking forward to read President Nathan's autobiography. That's all I'll say. Can the elected president affect the management of reserves? No. And last, if the elected president is a little naughty, what can be done? There actually is a legal procedure. It's in Article 22L, and it actually provides for a removal process. It's a bit complicated, but it's for things like treason, moral turpitude, and the broadest one is intentional violation of the Constitution, and it actually involves both the judiciary and Parliament. So there is that way out. And of course, elections as well.
Okay.
You want me to answer all the three questions?
All the four questions.
All the four questions. I don't think, I'm not sure I can add much more to what Leanne has said on the issue of medical certificates. I think it's something that Singaporeans are entitled to ask of the candidates, and it's for the candidates to satisfy people that, their health is not an issue, if it's made an issue in the first place. As for a somewhat politically angled question from Ms. Oon, who wants to press me on what can be done, it's all in black and white in the Constitution as to what can be done. For example, if there is a disagreement between the President and the Cabinet or government as to whether the President's actions are constitutional or unconstitutional, the courts are entitled to rule upon them. And if supposing the President engages in a certain course of conduct, which is ruled unconstitutional by the courts, and then if the President continues to engage, and I cannot imagine such a situation ever developing, so this is really a hypothetical upon a hypothetical, based on a question that is asked for a political reason, then I will say in response, Article 22L of the Constitution sets out what the consequences can be.
Okay. Janadas, you want to say anything?
Sorry, there was a question on whether the President can influence the management of reserves.
Yeah.
I think the answer is President should comply with the Constitution.
Yeah, I mean the President on reserve, the President has no proactive power, to manage or to give advice on how it should be managed. His power is to prevent a government from spending the accumulated reserves of the previous government.